Welcome back to the second installment of Press Monkey Media Radio, and our second installment on the 11th of November here in Colorado. Coming back, he wanted to reintroduce Izzy. We're here with Izzy still. How you doing, Izzy?
Good. It's good to be here.
No, it's certainly good to have you. As I mentioned before, Izzy is actually the original editor of Press Monkey. I gave her the title because she's done most of the work in helping me bring you the truth, activism, and bananas. She's done a lot of work on my articles, a lot of work helping to refine my understanding and arguments of the current situations of the day as we swing from activist place to activist place and swing from source to source to try to bring you the truth and activism and bananas that you, our followers, deserve. So, Izzy, I want to preface this part of the report with a little piece of news and something that happened. We've also were talking recently about Alexandria Cortez and Alexandria Ocasio Cortez and her election. It was recently reported that she also is having difficulty finding an apartment situation there in Washington D.C. It said the apartments and for rent there are very very expensive. I don't know very much about that. What's your take on that?
I think that it really highlights the inequality problem in America in a new way. It's something that in our personal lives, between gentrification, inflated real estate costs, stagnating wages, affordable housing is a serious problem for more and more working class Americans. But when we talk about having a pay to play system, it's keeping citizen participation in the government out. Obviously, in getting media attention, um, there's an unfair advantage when it comes to who has money. Campaign finance rules not being effective in stopping corporations from controlling election coverage. But it goes a lot deeper than that. Um, I think it goes back to the basic sociology of being able to participate in society and people in lower income classes being left out of that. If someone who's elected to office can't afford to live where their elected office is on the pay of that office, what does that mean?
Well, that's definitely true. We've discussed this before, and as you know, I've brought up on this show a lot about income inequality regarding housing specifically, and I give you specific credit for helping me refine that idea into what we now coin as the residents Bill of Rights. When I was calling it the what was I calling that before? I was calling it the Renters Bill of Rights is what I was thinking before, but you helped me refine that concept a little bit better. I think that it also highlights the need for more protections of all of us, not just people who are public servants, but all of us when it comes to when it comes to renting and being consumers of the product of real estate and rental properties. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if they control where we live, they control what we can and cannot do. They control what we have access to. You can see that if they price us out of living where schools can afford good teachers. You can see that disadvantage. But this highlights how impossible it really is to have a government by and for the people if you don't have access to the basic things that people need.
I coined the phrase luxury gentrification some time ago. And I've lived out here, as you know, for 28 years actually. This December, uh, you've lived out. How long have you lived out here now, altogether, in this area in the Roaring Fork Valley, close to Aspen, Colorado?
I've lived here for 8 years altogether. I moved here nine years ago.
Now, in your estimation, is that a thing? Is luxury gentrification a thing?
It is, and it's not terribly different from other types of working class access to housing problems that you see. Um, but it's definitely a specific phenomenon in
Fan,
markets like
fans of
this.
the show know that I'm actually from Indiana. But where are you from originally? My
Um,
my love. I know this. I just want to actually introduce you a little bit more to the audience. So we're gonna give a little bit more background.
it's a bit of a gypsy background, honestly, as far as where I'm from. My my childhood and adulthood have been split up, bunch of different places. I was born in Dallas, Texas, but was fortunate enough to not stay there um, for too long. A few years later, I was on the East Coast and lived in New Jersey, and then was moved back and forth between Ohio, and then lived in New Jersey again and North Carolina, and then traveled around a lot after that in my young adult years as well. Um,
Now, to
came.
followers, after Izzy and I met, we uh, I fell in love, and we had our children not too long after that. I got her pregnant, and we moved to Ohio to stay with her mother while we had our firstborn child. Um, Ohio is a very, as most people know, as most of the followers of Press Monkey probably know, is very politically active and significant across the board. Even in this day and age, what was your take on political activity while you were there in Ohio?
Um, during which time period?
Well, I guess more specifically, I guess during your more formative years that you had spent there, or did you spend most of those in New Jersey?
Um, when I became politically aware was when I was living in Ohio. Actually, as a teenager, I ended up drawn to the Green Party very early on. I was unusual for the people around me in that I was really, really frustrated that I couldn't vote in in the election because I was just a couple months shy of turning 18 in 2000. I turned 18 in December, and so I was trying to get as many people as possible excited about the Green Party. And then in parts of my state, you might not have even had Ralph Nader on the ballot, even if some annoying 17-year-old got you to vote for him.
Now, I'm slightly older than you, so uh, I remember very specifically as after George Bush became elected president, and we were about to go into war. How old were you when that happened, and what was your feeling of that situation back then? I mean, because it's pretty well recognized that the media helped manufacture consent for us to go ahead and invade the pretense to invade Iraq to begin with, and then many countries after that was established there. What was your take on that as a kid, or was that something that was a little above the board for you?
No, that was actually my early college years. I was really involved in the anti war protest movement at that time, actually. Um, we were involved in organizing a group of people who went and joined up with a larger group representing solidarity with the big New York protest of the Republican National Convention under George Bush and that big anti-war protest. Um, I was, like I said, I was attending community college at the time. I was about 20 years old, I think. So that was.
About 18 or 20. That sounds about right. Um, well, I Ohio, of course, is famous for a lot of political activity and happenings and things like that, but that's not the focus of a lot of our cast right now. A lot of our cast has been more shenanigans down in Florida. Evidently, the evidently there's been a lot of different situations that have happened down in Florida that have been called into question whether or not there's going to be an actual legitimate election of their representatives down there. It seems like they're having they're having issues with the credibility and reliability of their election systems these days. Is that something that you would say is a fair assessment?
Um, that's a fair assessment, I would say, but there's there's quite a history of election problems in Florida. I'm a little overwhelmed with the level of election fraud problems
I
in that
mean,
state right
I mean,
now.
arguably, a lot of people say that Florida was the linchpin of uh, Al Gore's election or lack of election, rather. Would you say that that's also a fair assessment? I mean, and Florida has been seemingly a thorn in the side of almost every other election in some form or another. But most recently, there's been just many reported issues in this particular election of malfeasance down there. Uh, is it worth it? Is Florida become a political liability?
I'm not gonna go there. they're still Americans, so I'm not gonna.
Fair enough, fair enough. I'm just, I'm just saying, it's a little crazy. So I was just asking. Uh,
If if we accomplish comprehensive election reform, as I've talked about, and listeners, if you're still with us, look for me to bring that up in the more in-depth topic of discussion in future casts. If we had comprehensive election reform, I would just say we would make sure that Florida was not immune to any of those measures. Um,
yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, well, I guess we'll look forward to the next political happening and see what unfolds there before our next report. I'm not really sure how else to finish this report. Is there anything that you think that is being left out recently that we should probably be talking about? I mean, obviously, other than all the things that are being missed by mainstream media, like the atrocities that are being helped committed in Yemen and in Syria and um, other in Africa and places in Africa and other places in the Middle East. Other than all those things,
those things and a lot more. We've barely scratched the surface. So I would just say everybody look for more to come. Some articles coming your way.
articles. Well, it sounds good to me. You're a great writer and a great editor. You've helped refine my work for sure. So we'll look forward to some articles as well, and hopefully we'll get your little segment kicked off. The That's not a thing. It sounds really fun to me, and thank you for joining me on this episode specifically and getting broken in on the show. We'll look forward to seeing more or hearing more of Izzy, and I'll look forward to seeing more of her. We'll put her on a live cast with an actual video one of these days soon, though. So, but we'll look forward to hearing more from Izzy, and look more forward to giving you folks some more truth activism and bananas. Um, you have anything to finish off with?
Join us on justinform.com. That's JUST, the letter N, FORM.com. And check out pressmonkeymedia.com.
One more, Steph, one more.